Hello guys, this is Panzermice36. Today's video is going to be my full build on this Tamiya M10 IIc Achilles tank destroyer for the Plastic Posse Podcast M3-M4 group build. For that group build I decided to go with a nice basic Tamiya kit like this one, which would be no hassle. And then I kind of went overboard with some aftermarket accessories because I was inspired by a cool reference photo, as I always am. In this video we'll look at, of course, the build itself, some basic techniques for improving the level of detail, and we'll also focus a lot on all of the aftermarket accessories and all of the inevitable shenanigans involving those. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned something new, and now let's get started. Here's the kit that I chose. I decided to go with a nice basic Tamiya kit to make things easy. Additionally, this is a very recent kit, as you can see, and it's probably the best Tamiya kit I've ever built. Not very many parts in there, though we do have some disgusting rubber tracks I'm going to throw out. And then I went ahead and spent 3 times the kit value in aftermarket. I got a lot of 3D printed accessories here that I wanted to try out. The US Army tool clasps are definitely something interesting. I also got some more 3D printed accessories for the radios because I want to make a proper British vehicle. Got some tracks for track armor, tracks for the actual running gear. I have some photo etch sets for the Academy kit, which should fit. Metal barrel, some resin stowage box things, and then also some decal sets that I can use to make a proper Canadian vehicle. I got these and the photo etch from Joe Yellow. He sent me a spare kit of his that had all those inside. So I don't want to bore you guys with a basic assembly because that's pretty straightforward, but I'll go through it pretty quick. I cut everything off with my Tamiya cutters. I sand with metal files because that's my style. I don't like sanding sponges. And then everything is glued with Tamiya extra thin cement. There's countless different ways you can do this. You can cut with a knife, use foam sponges and different glue, it doesn't really matter. I'm really impressed with the engineering that Tamiya has gone through on this kit. They've molded the wheels on the edge of the mold, so there's no seam line around the outside, which is very good. And they also have given us a lot of nice poly caps for the wheels and also for the turret as well. And these make disassembly for painting much easier. Speaking of disassembly, I wanted to leave everything, all the wheels, removable, which is a little bit tricky due to the Sherman's bogey system. But I figured that I could actually kind of glue everything together for now for assembly using masking putty, which is a rubbery adhesive that I can use to just hold everything together temporarily. So I put it on some of the mating surfaces there, and I can just kind of push the whole bogey together, and then within a couple of seconds it dries into a temporary bond. The Tamiya kit gives you the hull tub as you can see as a bunch of different flat panels that go together to make the actual hull tub itself. I'm not really sure why. I know that it makes everything easier in terms of molding it because there's less big pieces in the whole kit, but then they went ahead and did the upper hull as a hull tub, which kind of confuses me. Why would you do one, not the other? But the alignment of the bottom hull tub was perfect, so there was no issues with it in the end. I also appreciate that Tamiya has given us the instructions in a proper booklet, which makes just building on your bench so much easier. This is excellent. It's not like the Dragon map formula where it just keeps unfolding and unfolding and unfolding and covers up my entire workbench. I don't like this very much. So a lot of molded details that are too thick for my liking. You have to slice them off and then you have to kind of fill them with putty and sand it smooth. You know, you don't have to do this. Like I said, the basic Tamiya kit's very good and most people don't really care, but I wanted to go the extra mile and add some nice detail, and I already had these photo etch sets on hand, so might as well use them, right? This is an Edward photo etch set where the photo etch is also kind of like weird plated photo etch. It's strange. It's not really a problem, but it is a lot harder to cut and sand because it's plated with something. But in the end, you know, it works just the same, folds just the same, glues just the same. As you can see, the accessories that I decided to add, like these limited stowage bits and these track mounts on the side, I didn't go with every photo etch piece, but I went with the ones that I thought mattered because in real life those would be sheet metal and thin details. Sometimes photo etch seems like it's pointless in that you're going to end up with something that's less detailed than the molded kit part. In those cases I wouldn't use it. Now, one place where I will use 3D printed or photo etch accessories wherever I can is when it comes to the tools. The molded on clamps and clasps and mounts onto the tools themselves, to me, just always look like blobs. They never look convincing. And the small photo etch accessories used to mount these tools are always very basic to fold, which is good for me because I don't actually have any fancy photo etch bending tools. I just use little tweezers and stuff, but it's still no issue. Now for the clamps themselves, or I guess clasps, straps, whatever you want to call them, I'm using these MJ Miniatures 3D printed accessories, and they actually look very, very good. They're a little tricky to, hack off the supporting material, but they're very impressive. You just cut them off and slide them right on. There's no bending of tricky curved photo etch like you would with a photo etch strap. I'm in love with these and I'm going to use them again for sure. Another benefit of using the photo etch accessories is that you can actually leave the tools completely separate for painting if that's your style, but I prefer to have everything glued on because I guess I'm a bit of a masochist, I don't know. Here you can see the places where I add photo etch, not everywhere, but I add it in the critical places where I think it counts the most towards the visual appeal of the model. Now for the radio antennas, here I also got some more 3D printed accessories. These are from Roche M Model and they're actually a great price and decent shipping. And they look incredible. They're very well printed, there was no visible layer lines, they're well protected, and cleanup is very easy, you just cut them right out of the base. These things look amazing. I could never fold photo etch into such a shape. For complex details like these, and for the tool straps for example, this is where I think 3D printing is most beneficial in our hobby. For the headlight guards, we're going to use it again. Plastic ones are way too thick as you can see here. Honestly, they're not bad, but they can be better. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue the plastic ones in place. This is a filling trick or hack that I use a lot. I will glue the plastic part into place, making sure that I jam it properly into the locating holes. And I use a fair amount of cement, not too much, but a lot because I want to soften the part and I want it to melt and completely fill the locating hole. Then I just slice it off and then I can scrape everything flush, and this is a much easier and quicker way of filling than trying to get some putty in there and sanding it smooth because the piece I'm using to fill it fits the hole perfectly. For the guards themselves, I'm using the T-Rex 3D printed set. You can use photo etch here, but if you get the 3D printed stuff, you don't have to bend it. It comes ready for you to glue right on. And these things look amazing. Along with the other details I added, I think they really up the realism of the model. My reference photo showed a lot of track armor on the model, so I bought a completely whole set of tracks just for this. These are plastic tracks by Panda Plastics. They're in their own separate review video that I'll link up in the upper right hand corner for you to watch. These are excellent tracks, and the fact that they are plastic and not resin or metal is good for me here because I'll be able to glue them very securely onto the plastic model itself. So at this point our hull is looking pretty good, and we can move on to the turret. You can see here I upgraded my cutters. These are the Disc Bay single blade cutters and they're really, really good. So as usual, Tamiya has ejector pin marks on the inside of their turret. This is very common. Luckily they're very easy to sand away, and you only have to sand off maybe half of them because a number of them are actually completely hidden by the stowage arrangement, which must be something Tamiya designed because, that's way too convenient. Much like with the hull, I'm going with mostly the plastic kit accessories and only adding photo etch or 3D printed parts where I think it really matters. I'm not really skilled enough to make most of these complicated boxes and bins out of photo etch anyways. Additionally, some details like the stowage and the Sten guns are going to be left separate for painting. The kit's gun breech is an impressive assembly with lots of nice detail parts, so it's going to look really good given how visible it is through the open turret. Additionally, they give you some polycaps on the sides of the mantlet where it mounts into the turret, and this is actually very beneficial because this means that I can essentially assemble the turret but actually have it in 3 or 4 parts for painting, and this will make it much easier to paint the interior later. kit has really good cast texture on some of the parts here. For example, the mantlet. This is beautiful. This is as good as I could make on my own, so I'm just going to leave it. However, on some of the other parts, like the turret counterweight bustle thing here on the back, there's really nice cast texture, but these are multiple components, so you end up with these gaps and lines where they go together. On those parts, I just completely redid the cast texture by stippling on some Tamiya gray putty. I'm just using a crappy old brush here. And then later on, once it's dried, I just go in there and sand it down with a 1200 grit sponge. As you can see, that helps to get rid of these rough burrs, because cast texture shouldn't really be spiky. It should be, kind of pitted on the surface a little bit. Again, I'm going with the photo etch accessories wherever I can, but because these are meant for the Academy kit, sometimes they don't really line up with the Tamiya kit, so I have to kind of BS some of the detail here in some spots. What I make for this support arm here isn't exactly accurate, but if I hadn't said that, you probably wouldn't have noticed, so that's good enough for me. So here's the turret as assembled as it will be for painting, and it looks very impressive. You can see the photo etch and the cast texture looks great. I could have replaced these strap tie downs on the side with photo etch, but that's just too much work for my style. The metal gun barrel I have here is from RB Model, which I don't think exists anymore, sadly. It's quite complicated, and it's also thicker than the kit gun barrel by a significant amount, so I had to actually sand out the collar here like a millimeter or more, because look at how wide it is after sanding on the kit barrel. Also, the RB barrel was very hard to screw the muzzle brake onto, so I had to use tweezers as like a wrench. It's also hard to hang on to the barrel because it's so slippery, so I had to kind of work on that a little bit. Now, based on my reference photos, there should be a bunch of jerry cans and boxes trapped to the side here, probably full of Santa's extra armor with the tracks. So to tie these on, I'm actually using some strands from a copper wire, because I don't want to make floating stowage. I want everything to look like it's properly lashed in place. So I carefully thread this stuff through the spare track or grouser mounts here. Make it look like it's actually going to really tie the thing on, and then I actually kind of really do tie the thing on. I also added a few more bits of spare track on the front to finalize the look of this after the reference photo. And at this point, I thought that I was completely done the build. It looks very good. But then as I went through my reference photos for one last time looking for cool stowage or weathering markings, I found a photo that I took at the Munster Tank Museum a few years ago, and upon closer examination I realized that I think I'm missing some periscope guards that are on the M10, and I actually found them in other photos as well, so that was a bit of an uh-oh moment because I was very close to the end of the build timeline. But what's a little bit more aftermarket on our massive stockpile, eh? These T-Rex accessories might be a little overscale because when I glued them in place, the turret couldn't turn anymore. So there's obviously some tolerancing issues, but this actually shouldn't be a problem because if I just leave the periscope guard off on this side, I can swing the turret off, leave it separate for painting, and then after everything's all built in the end, I will glue that guard back in place. The build is complete, just on time. I think at this point I had about 12 days until the show in Omaha, so we've got plenty of time for painting and weathering. No rush, right? Like I talked about in the video, the basic kit itself is very good. I would really recommend it to anybody because it's got excellent detail for the cast textures, weld seams, and the fit is really impressive as well. So it would be great for a beginner build, and also for a more advanced modeler, it would be a stress-free base to add upon lots of aftermarket accessories and detail and other stuff like I did in this video here for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe picked up some techniques for your own build or if you're building this kit. And I hope you guys also enjoy my painting and weathering video, which I think will be out in 2 weeks. Maybe my trip to Omaha for the Nationals with this kit will put a delay on my editing schedule. But it will be my first time weathering British SSC 15 olive drab, so it'll be something new for sure. Anyways, until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you want to support me, you can do so with the Patreon link on screen now. It's much appreciated, those who support me. Goodbye, stay safe, and happy modeling.